good evening.
Il y avait du son là à l'instant. Enfin, il y avait la barre de son qui a. Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Ok. On voit qu'il parle, mais on l'entend pas. We can see that you're speaking, but we're not hearing you. It might be an issue on our end.
I'll check again.
Yeah, we can still see you're speaking. I'm sorry. We're going to try to solve this.
المشكلة من عندهم.
اوكي.
أنا أحكي من المشكلة من عندهم بحاول.
Il s'est mute. Il s'est unmute.
No, it's not mute.
It's the same thing. Ouais. Il faut encore redémarrer ou c'est. T'avais rien fait de particulier pour pouvoir l'entendre?
J'ai redémarré.
Ouais. Lorenzo, il est toujours en ligne?
Ah, moi, oui, je pense que.
T'es toujours en ligne, Lorenzo?
Oui, je sais pas. Moi, je perds.
Ah, c'est toi?
Ouais, c'est moi.
Ah, ok. Donc, t'es la seule personne en ligne, là?
Non, il y a aussi Ibrahim.
Ah, ok. And Ibrahim, you can also hear us?
Can you hear us?
I can hear, yes, for me.
Oh, no. We can only hear Lorenzo. We can't hear Ibrahim.
It's not what you
yes. Okay, we can hear you.
Me too? No?
Can you hear Ibrahim also?
I can hear.
Could you please speak again?
Can you hear us?
Okay,
we can see you now.
Can you hear now? Can you hear me?
Oh, we can't hear you.
Okay.
On l'a entendu pendant 2 secondes et il s'est encore... Bon, il s'est mute de nouveau. Vous voulez prendre place?
Non,
Vous serez... Là, il y a une caméra. La caméra est plutôt là, c'est ça? Donc, les intervenants pourront vous voir et bien vous entendre grâce au micro. Ah, d'ailleurs, les micros de la salle aussi, ils pourront entendre. Donc, il faudra bien... Voilà, c'est ça. Bah, ça ne se voit pas à l'écran, mais on disait tout à l'heure, il y a une caméra. Et, ouais. Donc, si les gens posent des questions en français, il faudra les traduire en anglais pour que comprennent la question. Par contre, on l'entend pas.
Lorenzo, tu nous entends toujours, toi?
Oui, moi je vous entends très bien.
Parce qu'en fait, on t'entend toi, mais pas les intervenants. Donc, on les a vus vite.
Il y a toujours que Ibrahim qui est en ligne ou il y a aussi...
Il y a aussi la vidéo.
Yes, I can hear. Yeah.
Try to speak louder.
Oh yes, we heard you.
Yeah, thank you.
En fait, il y a je pense que c'est son internet qui est pas très bon.
Ouais.
Parce que le son, il est décalé par rapport à lui.
أنا مش نافع أفتح الكاميرا، مش قادرة أفتح الكاميرا.
How are you? Can you see me?
Yes, we
No.
can see you.
Yeah, we can see.
Ibrahim, could you try to speak a bit?
Yeah, can you hear me? Hi.
No, we don't hear you.
No?
You hear us. You can hear us. Could you make a sign if you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
I hear you.
Try again, perhaps, because something...
Can you hear me now? Hear me?
Ouais.
Can you hear me also? واضح إنه مش سامعيننا ولا أنا ولا أنت.
ما معناته المشكلة من هناك.
I don't know what is happening.
Okay. اسمعي بدي أطلع وأرجع.
أنا طلعت ورجعت ما بصير.
ما زبط؟
لا عملت ساين اوت وعودت دخلت ولا الصورة مش راضية تفتح ولا هذا.
خلينا نحاول كمان مرة، بدي أعمل لي.
جرب.
يلا.
C'est parce que c'est Lorenzo qui guide l'Italie.
جرب.
Toi, tu les entends, toi?
Can you hear me now?
Ok, bah, je réessaye.
لا بعد.
Je vous laisse.
أنا المشكلة جربت أنا طلعت ودخلت جربت
Tu
أرجع.
préviens les intervenants que je relance. Je vais relancer en fait à.
On va essayer de redémarrer la visio.
أنا مش قادرة أضوي الكاميرا حتى.
But you can hear me, yeah, right here. Oh, not there.
Also, I can't open the camera.
Now? Okay.
I think we can hear everybody now.
You can hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
So sorry for that.
No worries.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes, we just heard her as well.
I already did that, but I will redo it. No, I tried to check all these things. I couldn't find anything that forbidden me from opening the camera, but it's still. Okay, I will close and return back. Okay.
And can you confirm that you don't have any slides or visuals?
No slides, no slides.
Okay.
Ouais,
ça y est, on entend. C'est juste de voir.
ما طلب منك permission أي شيء؟
لا بطلع لي an error occurred while accessing your camera رأسا. بطلع لي الايرور وما بعرفش هاي لساته.
J'ai l'impression que tout le monde qui rejoint le stream après
que je sois.
on les entend pas. C'est toi qui rejoins. Parce que là, on n'entend plus Lourdes. On a l'impression que lui, elle lui a parlé.
Non, là, c'est pas pareil. Là, en fait, on entend qu'elle a du mal à s'afficher. En fait.
Ouais, et là, elle est sortie, elle est revenue, et maintenant, on l'entend. Ils sont... Ouais.
Ah, si, elle est connectée. Hein.
Ah ouais.
Elle est connectée, mais.
We still can't see your video.
Yes. I re-entered and it didn't change. They say.
We also can't hear. Ouais, tu vois, là, on l'entend plus. Il y avait son son qui...
It will not be a problem.
Unmute video.
You can hear our voice, at least.
On peut pas le faire.
Si on lui demande d'activer l'appli qui converte, c'est pas la vision.
Ouais, c'est peut-être de son côté qu'il faut pas l'activer.
Lourdes?
Yes.
Lourdes? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
If you can hear me, could you unmute your video?
Yes, she can hear, but there is a problem in her video.
Okay.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think, je pense que Fred va se reconnecter. Oui, on voit des participants là. Oui. Oui. Il n'est pas à 0, il est à mi-parcours, ouais, moitié. Et on a essayé de l'ajouter, mais on ne voit pas sa vidéo. Elle est en train de se muter et se démuter. Ok. Bon, c'est pas grave.
Là, plus de...
Ok. Non, on n'entend pas. Ouais. Moi, j'ai vraiment l'impression que si on re-rentrait, on ressort un peu. Mais...
Tu veux que j'essaye?
Bah, peut-être. Parce que c'est ça. Quand on est rentré, on les entendait les deux. Et après, elle est ressortie, elle est rentrée et on n'entendait plus que Ibrahim. Voilà. Ouais.
Je relance?
Ouais. Lorenzo suggère de relancer. Et puis après, on ne touche plus à rien. Non, c'est... Essayez. De toute façon, on va donner tout. Ouais. Toi, tu peux essayer de parler déjà? Oui.
Yeah, we can hear.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, we heard everybody. We just heard all three of you. C'est bon. Ouais, c'est bon.
Mais on la voit pas, par contre.
Ouais, elle a un problème de caméra sur son...
D'accord, ok.
Okay, we're all set.
Okay.
Ok, super. Le live sur YouTube est déjà...
Voilà, c'est parti. Demande-lui d'enregistrer la conférence.
C'est en train d'enregistrer, c'est ça? Ouais, oui, c'est en train d'enregistrer.
Ok, bon, on est bon.
Je commence et je vous donne la parole. Pardon, je commence et je vous donne la parole. On y va? Are you all ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Okay. Good evening and welcome to the 20th talk in our Palestine seminar at the École Normale Supérieure. This talk, which was originally scheduled over a month ago, is particularly important to us since it is about education and the school infrastructure in Palestine. Our two speakers, Ibrahim Rabaia and Lourdes Habash, are joining us remotely. We're very grateful to them both, and we are grateful for Sophie Roux' participation in today's session. Sophie Roux is a professor of philosophy here at the ENS and will be moderating this talk. The goal of this seminar is twofold. We strive to think with Palestine about its history and its current situation, while also recognizing that Palestine functions as a catalyst to think across disciplines, whether it's international law, geopolitics, economics, sociology, or artistic fields. This interdisciplinary seminar is supported by several departments at the École Normale Supérieure: the History, Philosophy, Cognitive Studies, and Geography departments, the Department of Languages, ICLA, and the CNRS, the Center of Environmental Studies. Here are a few important rules to ensure that this talk goes well. We won't tolerate any racist, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, sexist, homophobic, or transphobic comments, or any minimization of war crimes or crimes against humanity, or any comment aiming to dehumanize a people, an ethnic group, or a religious community. Please don't record the speakers, the organizers, or the audience without their consent, and don't shout or interrupt them as they are speaking. Please ask real questions and refrain from long comments or provocations. A few words about the situation in Gaza. In the last week, Israel has intensified its attacks on Gaza, killing 730 people. The head of the Directorate of Education of East Khan Younis was killed last night, along with several family members, after an airstrike struck their home. Earlier today, Israel bombed the Red Cross headquarters in Rafah, and Israeli forces are advancing on the Al-Mawasi camp, a coastal area where they had ordered Rafah residents to flee and which they had declared a safe humanitarian zone. I'll now let Sophie Roux say a few words and introduce our speakers today.
Thank you. So, before actually introducing Ibrahim and Lourdes, I would like to say a few words about why I am introducing and moderating this session. I'm not a specialist of Palestine, nor more generally of the Middle East. By profession, I'm an historian and philosopher of science with a strong focus on the early modern period. And I have made, for several reasons, a rule not to intervene as an academic in politics when my professional expertise is not concerned. And of course, with my focus on the early modern period, I am usually rather quiet. But there are exceptions to every rule, and here there have been two exceptions for me. I am mentioning them not for talking about myself, but because I think they apply to many of the students and academics here. The first rule and exception is to intervene when my profession is directly concerned. In France, I intervened against the structural reforms that over the last 20 years have radically altered the university and more generally higher education and research institution. Today, I'm affected by the budget cuts that are taking place not only in France, but also in Italy, in the Netherlands, and a few other European countries. And I think that we need to stand up for science with our colleagues from the United States. But I am also concerned when one country deliberately, frontally, and systematically delete another country's education system, destructing buildings and libraries, preventing the circulation of ideas, killing school children, students, and their teachers. And there was, for me, another exception, which is to intervene when I feel that there are too few voices to speak out. And this has been clearly the case with French academic voices on Palestine. For the last year and a half, the silence of French academics has been, as it were, deafening. And there are many reasons here again for this silence. I'm not going to talk about them. But the fact that so few academic voices are speaking out on a subject that directly concerns the academic world leads me to put forward a very simple idea. There is the ongoing educide, I don't know how to pronunciate it, educide in Palestine, but there is also, in a much less dramatic way, but nonetheless a significant way, what is happening to higher education in our institutions of higher learning in European countries and in the United States. And there are countless examples of that. I'm only going to give 3 examples. The first is from January 25. During its annual conference, the American Historical Association, which is of scholasticide, that is, of systematically and deliberately destroying Gaza's schools and universities. However, a few days after, this was vetoed by the council of the same association, which declared that, I quote, "This resolution, the resolution on scholasticide, lies outside the scope of the association's mission and purpose." So the idea is that the association is an association of historians, and the historians should focus on history and on writing history, not be concerned by what is happening in the present world. February 2025, under pressure from some politicians, the Freie Universität in Berlin canceled some lectures by Francesca Albanese, as you know, special rapporteur on the situation of human rights in the Palestinian territory occupied since 1967. And British-Israeli professor ELE Weizmann, which is director of the Center for Research Architecture at Goldsmiths College, University College London, was also cancelled. A week earlier, the Ludwig Maximilian Universität in Munich had also cancelled a lecture by Francesca Albanese. March 2025, as some of you probably know, the Trump administration illegally cancelled $400 billion in funding to Columbia University. Columbia University was told that the money would be restored if and only if it met various conditions, which included placing its Middle East, South Asian and African Studies department, I quote, under academic receivership, whatever it means, making, quote again, comprehensive reforms to its students' admissions and international recruiting practices. And last week, it was Friday, I think, Columbia University capitulated and produced. So what I wanted to say is that there is something at stake for us in Europe and the United States, and it's what is known as academic freedom, which, with variations in space and times, may refer to the integrity of campuses, to the autonomy of research with respect to politics, but also to economics, or still to the freedom of teaching and research. And the idea, freedom of teaching and research, again, there are many variations, but the basic idea is that as long as we respect the law and the forms of argumentation admitted in a given field of knowledge, we should be able to freely discuss about everything, not only because this freedom is in harmony with our democratic ideal, but also because this freedom, this kind of freedom, is supposed to help us in thinking better, in increasing knowledge, etc., etc., etc. I would like to finish with one last example, which is obviously much less representative of the current period, but which is important to me because this example will help me to make the point that, like any freedom, it must be freedom for all, or it's not a freedom. So it happened in June 2024, and students and colleagues protested against the visit of Elie Barnavi in Brussels. Elie Barnavi had been a professor at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem and also Israel ambassador to France in the early 2000s. And the rector decided to maintain, despite this protestation, the visit of Elie Barnavi because, I quote, "Debate and critical thinking are the very DNA of our institution, and I value them like the apple of my eye. I will never give them up." So as I said, I wanted to recall of all of you, we are going to speak of higher education in Palestine, but this has consequences for us, and the
Thank you, Sophia. It's our pleasure of being with you today. And unfortunately, I couldn't do it and being with you in Paris. Maybe next time. Thank you for the organizers. Also, I have to say that we have the same challenge for the freedoms of higher education, freedoms of unquestionable freedoms of education in general, here in Ramallah, in Gaza, in Paris, in the US. We are working to protect our ethical norms and values of higher education in general. why we talk about higher education in Gaza? Actually, me and my colleague Dr. Lourdes, we were discuss how to help in the early months of this war, the genocidal war on Gaza, how to help our colleagues in higher education there. And at that point, in the early months, it was very difficult even to contact them, because the poor communication and the continuous evacuation from every place there in Gaza. So we tried to help in this way, but we worked with our colleagues, our researchers in the field there in Gaza, in the north and the south of Gaza, on collecting data on destruction. And we were shocked also at that point on the systematic targeting of higher education institutions there. Now, at that point, we were thinking, is it only destruction or it is more than that? And then we came to the point that this is educide. This is systematic destruction to achieve something. This thing was presented by the Israeli Prime Minister when he said that he's going to what he called de-radicalization of education system in Gaza. It means reproduce education, including higher education, with all of these or all of its details. Before that, let me introduce a brief about the history of higher education system in Gaza. In 1994, we were talking about 3 universities and 4 institutes there. The number jumped to around 28 institutes, higher education institutes in Gaza in 2017, including 8 universities and 20 institutes. The total enrolled students before the war were around 87 to 88,000 students. 80% of them were in the major universities, the 8 universities there. However, we wrote about the de-development of higher education system in Gaza before this war. And between 2007 and 2023, there was restrictions on higher education of Gaza. For example, in 2014, the war of 2014, the estimated losses of higher education system in general were $10 million. The airstrikes destroyed 3 buildings, for example, in Al-Azhar University, 2 buildings in the Islamic University, and destroyed several laboratories. And during these 17 years of blockade, which included several wars, of course, there was many challenges. These challenges included preventing of movement and mobility. For example, before 2007, there was, even before the second Intifada, 2000, there was around 1,000 students from Gaza in the universities of West Bank. Now we are talking about 50 students only. There is no way for any academic from the West Bank or abroad to visit Gaza. This was impossible during the last 17 years. Also, the second challenge is the complex financial crisis. The blockade, the siege on Gaza, the difficult situation and the high rates of poverty and unemployment made the problem more complex, financial crisis. The third challenge we can say about preventing the development of infrastructure by preventing the universities from importing the educational equipments. As this was claimed, there was like a dual use for these equipments, mainly in laboratories. Also, besides this, there was destruction and targeting for facilities and individuals for the last 17 years. When we come to the numbers and the situation, the complex financial crisis before the war, only 20 to 40% of the students were able to pay their tuition fees. In 2019, the average debt of the universities was around $30 million, and this is a very big number on this small sector, and I can say maybe limited resources of these universities. So the universities depended, when we come to the structure and the maybe the human capital of these universities. The universities depended on the part-timers and the annual contractors as a professors there. So there was a very high rates of job insecurity for the professors in Gaza before this war. During the 17 years, the Islamic University, for example, lost around 74 laboratories, but it couldn't import the equipment to reconstruct these laboratories. Also, the higher education system were prevented not only from importing such equipments and inputs, the sector was not allowed to import even books and update its libraries or academic books. So we talk about this map before the war. The higher education system reached the point of the war with a very difficult situation. It was exhausted sector, exhausted staff, and exhausted maybe structure in general. Maybe now we moved after that during the war to the educide, and we define educide by the systematic targeting for education sector and infrastructure and the human capital. Maybe Dr. Lourdes can maybe explain more about this. Dr. Lourdes?
Okay, good evening, everybody. Thank you for hosting us. I'm pleased to be with you today. As my colleague started to explain the educide in Gaza, we should put it in a framework that targeting education is a systematic one. It was not happening in hazard. It was systemized, and the Israeli was targeting the education in Palestine since '67. And this can be traced to a military order that were directed to education to prevent the development of this section. That's why in one of the articles with my colleague Rabaia, we described the education under the Israeli occupation since '67. We called it's a bird education because the education was targeted by the Israeli. That's why to understand what is educide, as my colleague said, it was targeted from the beginning. So we can't understand educide without looking to the past since '67 and seeing how the military order was banning hundreds of books, was also closing and demolishing schools and university and killing and detention of students and professors. What my colleague had explained, Dr. Ibrahim explained before me that before the educide, the education in Gaza Strip was targeting by we can say by implementing two strategies before reaching the educide. The first one is the development, and the second one is spatial cleansing. And that's why educide is the peak of targeting the education there. That's why, as my colleague mentioned, that we decided to use educide because it's related to genocide, and what's happening in Gaza today is part of genocide war, and educide is part of the genocide war, but targeting the education system. The development, as my colleague had mentioned, was clearly in Gaza Strip, and the cleansing and special cleansing, forcing the students and the professor to leave from one part of Gaza to another part of Gaza. And what we are seeing now in genocide war is more clear, but it wasn't. We can say that it wasn't implemented before the genocide war. It was implemented, but it was not very clear like what's happening today in Gaza. That's why the development was implemented in Gaza as a target of the occupation system, because when we compare to other countries, we can say the occupation always try to put obstacles on education, because education usually as a used systematically as a weapon for political and socio-economic development purpose. That's why, as a Palestinian, we always trying to develop the education system. That's why, as my colleague mentioned, that in the last 20 years, we saw the development of many institutions in Gaza that was specified for higher education. And this is part of the mentality and the targeting of the Palestinian to develop their identity, their national identity, to give opportunity for young generation to get education in universities and in colleges, and to develop their skills and be part of developing their society. That's why the Israeli has targeted the education system as part to deny the opportunity for the students to develop their skills. So when we talk about after 7th October, we can notice the peak of targeting the universities, and when we with the help of our colleagues in Gaza to gather information about the targeting of universities in Gaza, we noticed that all the universities and institutions in Gaza that's related to college and universities were targeted. In Gaza, we should say that most of the universities, they have branches. They have branches in the north and the south, but most of them are in the north. So we can, through the data that were collected when we did our two papers, we found that most of the universities were partially or completely destroyed. Even the university that were partially destroyed, it will not be easy to reconstruct them, because it needs also to rebuild them. As you know, opening or rebuilding a building that is part of it is damaged is not, it's a bit risk if you will have students going to these universities. So when
maybe I can bring some numbers here. We can, as we said, we have 28 institutes in Gaza in general, including the 8 universities. All of these 28 were targeted totally or partly. 90% of the buildings of these institutes were destroyed. And this number jumped from, we are talking about 140 buildings in general. This number came from, was in January, last January. In last January, the numbers were 140. And we can say that this number increased last week by targeting more buildings for the Islamic University in the Netzarim area. This number was in April 2024, 32. So the number jumped from 32 buildings were targeted until April 2024 to 140 in January 2025. The estimations of the losses of the Islamic University, we say in Gaza we have the three major universities, the big universities, the Islamic University, Al-Azhar University, and Al-Aqsa University. For the Islamic University, the estimated losses are 140 million, and Al-Azhar University 121 million. And the early estimations for the total losses of the sector, the higher education sector of Gaza, is between 500 to 600 million dollars. For the human capital losses, this war killed until January also, last January, 150 of the academic staff and 1,200 students. And we have a known number of detainees in general. These are the numbers, and also we can say that we lost now 2 to 3 academic years, and it is difficult to recover this under these circumstances in Gaza. I can go back to the Islamic University in the details of the losses. The academic buildings were destroyed, totally destroyed, are 19. The teaching halls 500, the labs 200, and the computer labs 75, and the library is totally destroyed. We are talking about 240,000 books were lost in this war.
Okay. All the numbers that my colleague had mentioned is not the final one, as he already as he already mentioned, because unfortunately, when the ceasefire began, we hope that all these things the university will start to estimate the loss, the final loss, and these things. But unfortunately, back to war again, it will be also difficult to estimate the number, and the number will unfortunately be rise again. Also, we don't know how many students or professors were killed, because the number at that time were not final, and all the numbers are only estimated, and it will be unfortunately escalated, and the number will be higher than what we already think. When we are talking about the losing of buildings and the losing of students, and also we should add to that the financial crisis that was part of the development that the Israelis implement in Gaza. Now under the Gaza war, the genocide in Gaza, the situation, as all of you know, is escalated. So when we are thinking about the future also going and rebuilding the higher education in Gaza, we are not talking about only rebuilding the building. To build or rebuild the building is part of the problem. The other part of the problem is the psychology of the students, the losses of students, the losses of professors, also the financial crisis that all the students will be facing after the war will be finished, how they will re-enter the university at the time that they don't have money to support their families. Also, many of the students lost their parents, so now unfortunately they will be the one who their families will depend on them to have money and to raise their sisters or their brothers. So the financial problems will be part of rebuilding higher education. Also, I want to shed light on the things that, on one of the articles that me and Dr. Ibrahim are working is to compare educide between Iraq and Gaza. And when we look to that case, we saw that during the war in Iraq, there was educide there also, but we differentiate between what happened in Iraq comparing to Gaza. There it was partial educide, but here in Gaza it was completely educide, because it's essential when we are talking about how we are going to rebuild the higher education. There in Iraq, it was partial, as I mentioned, because not all of the institutions and colleges and universities were totally destroyed. Part of them was still working. Also, the other buildings surrounding the universities are also, not all of them were destroyed, but in Gaza, you can see most of the building in Gaza, in all areas in Gaza Strip, were destroyed. So if we want to hire a building or buy for universities, is not easy because we will not finding buildings for families to stay in. How we can find a buildings to at least use them for 1 year or 2 years to reopen the university and start working. Also, the infrastructure. When we look at the infrastructure, the Israeli was targeting the infrastructure, and the infrastructure is part of the war that the Israeli occupation is using in Gaza Strip and also in the West Bank. Targeting infrastructure is part of the Israeli policy. So when we are talking about higher education, in the development, when we talked about the development in Gaza, they were targeting the infrastructure like electricity and these things, destroying also the laboratories and these things. But today we are talking about demolishing total of the infrastructure. That's why rebuilding the higher education, it would be a problem when we are thinking about the future, because education without infrastructure, there will not be a future for higher education. That's why when we look to the whole picture, we should not only focus on education and destruction of education only, because education should have a supporting infrastructure to keep it going. Also, they have to have a connection with other sectors like the social system, also the other system that's working in the society. So the problem with education, that all the sectors around education is also were targeted, because as I mentioned before, the Israeli is targeting all the variable sectors in Gaza Strip. They demolished the education system, they demolished the hospitals. So all these sectors in Gaza Strip were targeting so to finish or destroy all the possibilities for the Palestinians to keep living there, to force them to leave the countries. It's part of spatial cleansing. They want to destroy every future and every possibility for the Palestinian to live and to continue living there. So when we are talking about education, you should take this under your consideration, because rebuilding, it needs rebuilding all the society, because all the infrastructure, all the other sectors were also destroyed, and it's part of Israeli policy.
So maybe we can mention finally about the initiatives, but before that, the consequences and impact. There was Palestinian real fears about the existence of higher education institutes. But now we are talking that the Palestinian higher education institutes are trying to protect its existence by online programs, by trying to launch initiatives and specific initiatives for each university. Also, one of the impacts is related to academic stuff. First, we talked about the systematic targeting of the academic stuff, and maybe you read before about the Lavender, about the systematic targeting of intellectuals in Gaza by AI. This included some professors and included 3 of the presidents of the major universities there in Gaza. Besides, we are talking about the priorities of the academic staff. Security, the personal security, because there is a continuous evacuation and there is no permanent residence there in Gaza. The economic crisis and their priorities to maybe find the basic needs, and the brain drain because several professors left Gaza until May 2024 under this pressure. The students, what are the priorities of the students and their families? Is education, higher education, priority in this situation? The economic crisis of the people, are the families allowed to pay for this, for higher education? The academic environment in general, under this kind of war and uncertainty and continuous evacuation, humanitarian crisis, it's very difficult to push people to think about resuming their higher education even online. And the communication challenge, mainly we were talking about the virtual labs, for example. It was very difficult where to put these labs, because there is no, as I said, permanent residence for people even in camps inside Gaza. The initiatives, we have 3 levels of initiatives: local initiatives. For example, there was a visiting student initiative from the universities of West Bank. The professors in these universities were volunteers to educate the students of Gaza universities online, and this was for 1 and 2 or 2 semesters, and this was allowed in the Palestinian higher education regulations to take some courses as a visiting student in these universities. Also, now we have a SNAD initiative. It is led by Ta'awun, and it tries to maybe find resources for the universities of Gaza and pay for these universities the tuition fees of their students, to make some kind of economic circle inside the universities. These universities can pay salaries for their employees. Regional and international initiatives. Regional initiatives, there is several initiatives from Arab universities to host students who left Gaza, from Gaza and left Gaza, mainly in Egypt. Also, we have in Jordan and in other countries. Also, we have international initiatives to make some kind of voluntary education online, or to host some professors or students, or to support researchers financially to maybe work on their research who were from Gaza. Also, now we have the problem of the coordination of these initiatives, because the higher education, the Ministry of Higher Education is trying to work on this, but there is many difficulties as the war is still ongoing, and the ceasefire collapsed last week. The day after, the Israeli vision for this, as I said, they want to, what they say, to de-radicalization of the Palestinian education system. This includes reproducing the higher education system without the local values, norms, and maybe Palestinian considerations in general. And as Dr. Lourdes said, higher education for us as a Palestinian is part of our national identity. So it's difficult to accept this. The Palestinian vision is to reconstruct the higher education system in Gaza on national basis with Palestinian ownership on this reconstruction process, supporting students and academics to stay in Gaza, support the higher education system to restore its academic environment and programs, and finally refuse any conditionality related to make a kind of supervision on the content, mainly in the social sciences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for putting the educide in perspective by showing that it began actually much earlier. I mean, not as an educide, but as what you called day development, which include the forbidding of the movement of students, but also economic problems. And also what I admired very much when I read your paper some months ago is the fact that you are trying in a somewhat desperate situation to ask the question, how should we do to reconstruct our system? And what should we do? How or could we articulate the different initiatives that are taking place now? So, as I said to begin with, I'm going to ask some really open-ended questions from which you can pick up the ones you want, you find interesting, and just let go the other, and then we'll have questions from here, from the people in our room. The first question would be about the situation now in the West Bank, because last year I had the impression that the situation in the West Bank was very bad, but that at least some institutions like universities were still able to function. And of course, recently the situation has worsened with first the evacuation of the settlement of Jenin, then tanks in Jenin, multiplication of checkpoints. Last time we tried to talk together, we guessed that Lourdes was not here because she was retained at a checkpoint. And also now, of course, bombs again, including on the West Bank. So for me, it's quite impossible to simply imagine how you could function as a university now. And well, if you have anything to say on that, I think it would be important for us. So that would be the first question. How would you describe the situation now? Then I would have another question, and I fear it's going to appear so perhaps a bit too coldly academic, as it were, but I'm going to ask it, and if you think that it's not relevant, then you are, of course, allowed to drop the question. But the point is that unlike the category of genocide, the categories of educide, scholasticide, epistemicide, because they have all been suggested, are not currently recognized by international law. And according to what I read, the term scholasticide was introduced during the first Gaza war, or the so-called Operation Cast Lead in 2008-2009, while the term educide was first used in March 2011 in a humanitarian speech about Iraq. And you mentioned Iraq, and you said why you think that there is a distinction to introduce here. So I would like, if you can, simply to ask you why it is important for you to introduce, in addition to the category of genocide, which is now fairly accepted, categories such as educide, scholasticide, epistemicide, and also if you think necessary to introduce distinctions between these categories and which kind of distinctions. And last but not least, the third and final questions relate to our position in a French university. As I said, to begin with, I'm not sure that our margins of maneuver are very large, and many of us feel powerless. Nevertheless, I think it's important to ask you, from your position, what you think is important for us to do to help higher education in Palestine. What would be relevant if we can do something, which is not even sure. But if we are trying to help this reconstruction you mentioned, what should we do now? So,
Thank you. Maybe I can, maybe I can start with the first two questions. The situation in the West Bank now is becoming more complicated. Now we have two universities, for example, in Jenin and Tulkarem, and they are closed for the second month. The students are not allowed to reach their universities because of the situation. Also, the movement, as you mentioned, Sophia, the movement in the West Bank, we are talking about 5,000 kilometers. The West Bank is very small, 5,000 kilometers. We have in this 5,000 kilometers around 900 checkpoints and closure points. And in a recent study from Mass, they said that the Palestinians waste every day. We're talking about around 2.5 million Palestinians in the West Bank. They waste around 191,000 hours every day on the checkpoints, working hours, right? So this is too much. We are talking about $16 million losses, direct losses of these checkpoints. So the situation is complicated and becoming more complicated. Also, there is targeting for the students from Birzeit University. We have around 200 students are detained. They are arrested in the Israeli jails for something related to their maybe social media posts, something related to maybe Israeli claims. There is no clear because they are under administrative detainees. So this is the situation in the West Bank. So we try to stay and we try to do our best to teach and make the situation works. We have evaluation, continuous evaluation for the situation. For example, in some weeks, the situation becomes more complicated. We move to the online teaching because we are curious about the security of our students. Some last semester, for example, some of our students, my students, couldn't reach because the exam at that point, and because there was attack from the settlers to their village. They were not allowed to leave their homes at this point. But we understand, and we have some kind of maybe considerations. We consider this in our system. This is the first thing. And why we try to not use only genocide, we use these terms, educide, scholasticide. I think this is important for the to understand that these are subcategories of genocide, subcategories. And for example, when we talk about higher education, there is some common language and some common interest in this sector. between professors and academic, and who are working in academic environment all over the world. And when we talk about educide in this context, we have the same language. We are not in general in the broad language. So I think this is important for the sectoral maybe support and solidarity, and then building initiatives. And now we are allowed now to maybe discuss how that the French universities can help. But if we talk about the broad vision, it's very difficult to go through these details. The third question, which is related to what you can
university council at the university, in the university, I can say to you that we are always living in emergency situation. On daily basis, we keep following the news, we keep updating ourselves and the council, and we keep also taking decision on how the education will be. Like before, when we were presenting, now I get a message from a group for the university council about how will be the teaching in the coming days because of the escalating in the situation. So on daily basis, we have to update, and we are living really in emergency situation the whole semester. We are not living in a normal situation, but as Dr. Ibrahim had mentioned, we always adapt with the situation because education is so important for us, and we take the risk, and our students and the professor take the risk, because in a daily basis, our professors or our students will be detained at the checkpoints, or they will be beaten, or they will be killed. It's our daily basis situation on the ground. That's why we use hyper education. We have sometimes we switch to using Zoom and other facilities to have our lectures, because we want to continue. And in the last semester, we had our final exams virtually. Because our students, they couldn't reach the university. That's why this is our daily life. And this is the obstacle that we are facing. And on daily basis, when I reach the university, when we don't see a lot of students, we start asking which checkpoint is closed, because we have around more than, as my colleague mentioned, we have around 1,000 checkpoints, and they are on daily basis. There are sometimes more than those 1,000 checkpoints. So we ask ourselves which checkpoint is closed, and sometimes the students and the professor, they are stuck in Ramallah. They can't return back to their homes. So this is our daily life, and things are escalated more, as Dr. Ibrahim mentioned, in the north, because the situation there are much difficult from the south and from the middle of the West Bank. We use educide we decided, me and Dr. Ibrahim, we decided to use educide to differentiate it from any term that were used before, because the situation now is different from 2014 or 2008. It's totally different. The demolition and the total demolition of education in West Bank force us to use a different terminology, even there's a common things between them. And that's why it forced us also to differentiate it from Iraq, the situation in Iraq. That's why in our coming articles, we will use partial and complete educide, because to differentiate it from what's happening before 2024 and to differentiate it from also what's happened in Iraq. What can be done? Unfortunately, all of us is trying to find a way how to do these things. We are really doing our best to think what can we do, but at least we know things that we should concentrate on it. First, we should support the university there. We should not replace them. Even in the first phase, when we had classes, instead of giving classes for students in Gaza Strip, we were concentrating that we do not replace Gaza universities. We are supporting them till they can't return back and work on the ground. That's why we should keep our focus on supporting the university in Gaza and not replace them. That means we can support them through different things, supporting them financially, also supporting them by as a professors, if they want to be part of the initiative to give the classes and give courses for the students there, because we can use different, with the technology now it's not difficult to use these things. Also to support the need to restructure and to rebuild the higher education there, because it's very important not to lose hope there, because if we do not put much pressure on the Israeli occupation, they will not allow to rebuild the education there. And if we don't put pressure on the Israeli occupation, the situation will return back to the development. So return back on the vicious circle, we return back to the development. So we jump from educide to the development, and we keep on the same circle. From my side, that's it.
Thank you, both of you. So now we have time for discussion. I think the mic can go from one of you to the other, except if you don't want to be recorded.
Là, je peux traduire à l'oral en anglais si quelqu'un veut poser une question en français.
Oui. Ouais. So are there any remark or questions or demand of specification?
C'est une question par rapport à l'Open University, donc qui est basée à Ramallah, mais je crois qu'elle a 40 antennes. Donc, est-ce qu'ils arrivent à travailler en coopération avec les autres universités, ce qui était difficile avant?
You translate?
So the question is about Ramallah, and is it possible to work with... Pardon? Ah oui, pardon. The question is about the Open University in Ramallah and whether it's possible to work with other universities, whether it's possible for that university to work with other universities and cooperate. Should we ask a few questions and then? Yes.
Okay, so we take several questions and then we come back to you and you answer.
Okay, that's fine.
If you don't mind, then it would be easier.
Yeah.
Yes.
At least if there are other questions.
Yes, thank you for being here. I worked in Al-Aqsa, and I'm specifically interested in how med school students Palestinian students who are preparing to be doctors, especially in light of the way doctors have been targeted in this genocide, how med school students are doing in terms of continuing their training and residency and hopefully rotating into the really necessary medical care that's needed in Gaza and the West Bank.
So Ibrahim and Lourdes, could you hear the question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I wasn't sure because it's at the end of the room. A last question, since there are.
Thank you. I'm curious to know if any French universities are currently participating in any of the initiatives, the cooperation initiatives that you mentioned.
Okay, so perhaps we have already 3 questions, so we are going to come back to you afterwards. We begin by these 3 questions.
So we talk about the Open University. It is not only in Ramallah, it is also in Gaza. They have branches in Gaza and their branches they're destroyed. It is not online university. It is a hybrid university. So the students have to attend their exams on site there. This is a problem. And also the university, the same university in Gaza, lost its infrastructure, mostly all of its infrastructure, the branches in all of the cities. But the headquarters in Ramallah moved to the online teaching system there. So the students of the Open University of Gaza, the Open University, Al-Quds Open University, are attending their classes online now. The problem here that it is not easy for the students. Something I have to mention that they attend their classes for free. They are not supposed to pay tuition fees for their university. This initiative came from the university, supported by Arab partners in general. But the problem here that in this situation, at this moment, the priority of the students of Gaza is not higher education now, is not attending their classes. But they are trying. For the last 2 months, there was high levels of commitment from the students to attend these online classes. For the practical sessions for the medicine students, yes, this was a problem. But from the early days of the war, the 4th-year students of medicine faculty in Gaza started to work in the hospitals. So they have now practical experience more than their maybe academic knowledge at this point. There was some initiatives from Arab and international universities to host these students, to complete their education, and then they go back to serve in Gaza. But this is very sensitive and this is very difficult in Gaza because, the Israeli restrictions on the Palestinians to be back to Gaza are very high. So it is not guaranteed for them to be back to Gaza. These questions, there is many partnerships from between Palestinian universities and French universities, including Birzeit University and Najah University, Al-Azhar University, and also there is open channels and open cooperation between the Ministry of Higher Education and the government of the French government. For us also, we conducted a study with IFPO about this problem, and we about the situation of Gaza, the educide in Gaza, and they were also curious about the initiatives, what to do, how to help. We presented this work, our report, for the diplomats here in Ramallah, the French, the French consulate, and also in Jordan, we presented this work. And I think there is development in the French support and individual universities initiatives with Palestinian universities.
Thank you. So perhaps another row of questions. I say, okay, there, and then we come to you.
Yes, good evening. I have a very practical question. I guess there are some courses, some contents you cannot have for your students because the conditions are very difficult, and it's also a very naive question. So I have to understand better what the conditions are for streaming, for online. Would it be of any interest for you if we would gather some colleagues here in France and have them creating contents which could be sent to you or streamed to you in any way? And it would be just trying to help you complete your the contents where you have contents missing that we would help in this. It wouldn't be political. It wouldn't be about the situation there. It would be just if you want to have something in ancient history or in mathematics or that you're lacking. Could we do something? I guess that we could have some colleagues or even many colleagues in France who could be helpful and who would be ready to create these contents and to send them to you, but we have to know how we can send them to you.
So there is one question here.
My question is the same as her question, but on the world, all the countries, not just France. If what are the countries that are helping the most? Where are the medical students? I heard that many medical students went to Pakistan and Jordan, and not one came to France. Not one came to France. So is this true?
Perhaps by symmetry, if there is a third question, but if there is no. Okay. So I don't see any other questions, so perhaps you can answer them, please.
Okay, I will try to answer, and Dr. Ibrahim can add to that. In general, we welcome any help from French universities and other universities, from our colleagues around the world. We can coordinate things related how the things can be done systematically and help the education system in Palestine. I can think, in general, we welcome that, but things should be coordinated because this is the problem that we are facing, that things is not totally coordinated. And this is what we mentioned in one of our papers, that the things should be coordinated more. So the things, all the initiatives should be coordinated and supporting and not duplicated each other. So when we are talking like about taping a lecture or these things, when we tape, if we have coordination, the things that is taped for one lecture, it can be used for different universities. Instead of benefiting it from like 1,000 students, it can benefit more than 3,000 or 4,000 of students. That's why when we are talking about helping and about initiative from outside, we should put it under the coordination system. And that's why we, on every lecture that we are hosted, we concentrate on coordinating things, but we can discuss in details how we can do it, the practical thing, the logistic things, and the technology thing. We can coordinate it. We have our emails And if you want, you can take our emails from Sophie and the organizer, so we can talk about practical things and how we can implement it. We thank you for your initiatives and for your willing to help us. Relating the medical students, as far as I know, they are still facing problems, because if you are talking about the students who have the chance to leave Gaza, but since several months the borders were closed. So the student that you are talking about, that we are talking about students that they had the chance to leave Gaza at the early stage of genocide war. But most of them are stuck in Gaza, so they are not continuing their education there. As Dr. Ibrahim has mentioned, unfortunately they are working in the field. So now I can say from the thing that we heard and we saw on the TV, now we can say that they already graduated even without having their certificate from the things that they faced on the ground. If they are still alive till now, unfortunately. But the students who left there, I don't know if they went to which countries, but I don't know they went, all of them, the majority went in one country, because the things were not coordinated. There were several initiatives trying to help the medical students, but as far as I know, maybe Ibrahim know better about these things. As far as I know, that they didn't succeed in providing these students with a location to go and continue their education there.
So yes, for the medical students, there is two groups of these students: the students who are still in Gaza, and the students who moved to Egypt until May 2024. For the students who moved to Egypt, yes, they moved to the UK, to Egypt itself, and Pakistan, South Africa. These countries. There was the initiative from Pakistan, and there was a proposal from Pakistan offered to the Ministry of Higher Education to host these students there until they finish their study. And there was Palestinian refusal for this, because the priority is to help people to stay on in Gaza. Mainly this is very sensitive in the Palestinian case, mainly now after the American and Israeli proposals for Gaza. So for the students in Gaza, there is no movement. For the students who left Gaza earlier, yes, there are many initiatives. These countries, yes, I heard about that, because these initiatives came from NGOs, from universities, and from the governments of these countries. So the point comes from there. For France, I think the main coordination initiative comes with I think Najah University. It is about social sciences more. It is very difficult. Yes, I agree, and I appreciate the idea of make kind of systematic coordination. We can help in this because, as Dr. Lourdes said, she's part of the policymakers in the university, so she can help in Birzeit University, and all of these universities, the Palestinian universities, have their coordination hub in the Ministry of Higher Education. So we can make this kind of coordination. Also, we can check this initiative with the need assessment with the Ministry of Higher Education, because there is a need assessment, and updated need assessment comes from Gaza. about the subjects, about some kind of losses of human capital that they want to recover. So we can help in this by coordination with the Ministry of Higher Education and the Council of the Palestinian Universities. Thank you.
Thank you. Another row of questions. I actually even didn't know that there was a coordination or that you have been coordinating with the Ministry of Higher Education in France. We haven't heard about that, or I haven't heard about
No,
that.
I mean the Palestinian Ministry of Higher Education, the internal coordination here in Palestine.
But
yeah.
you mentioned at some point a contact or did I misunderstand that there was a contact with the ministry?
Consulate, yeah, with the consulate here in Palestine, with the development, the French development.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, not the Ministry of
No,
Higher.
not ministry.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
Wait a minute, please.
Yes. Yes. Hello. We were talking about Ministry of Education, but you have two of them in Palestine, one for Gaza and one for the.
Only one, now in practice, it is we can say that the health sector and education sector, we have unified structure and procedures, and during this war there is some kind of a coordination committee, including all of the Palestinian universities in Gaza and West Bank. They work together within the Palestinian Ministry of Higher Education here in the West Bank. But they work under the same procedures, under the same regulations, and with a very high coordination system.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I also wanted to ask, obviously one of the main important things about the higher education system is all the ways that students are being trained to support different parts of society, but also in terms of academic research, would you say there's there's probably many areas that specifically the Palestinian research system is like in terms of Palestinian culture, or in terms of history, or in terms of the current situation with Israel, that like the Palestinian research system is working on, and that is being prevented? Like, is there key types of knowledge that we are losing because of the current situation?
Yeah, there is agenda, national agenda for research. The as I said, the coordination group of the universities worked on for the last years, and I think they issued this agenda late 2024. So maybe I can offer this agenda. It mainly, yes, it focuses more on the losses now. The losses of this war resulted, the heritage, the education, the culture, the identity, and social sciences. This is very important in research, and I think there are many initiatives which were launched to support the Palestinian researchers, mainly in Gaza, to work on such kind of maybe topics.
About the research, from the situation what we are living at the genocide war, there's dozens of researchers who are going to concentrate on what's going on in Gaza, the genocide war, the genocide, the educide, targeting all the sector and these things, and also not only the research. Most of the conferences that are being held in West Bank, or with the cooperation with the Gaza University and others, is concentrating on Gaza and the genocide war and the effect of the genocide war in all sectors, especially regarding rebuilding the Gaza, what we call the day after. But the day after should be studied. That's why a lot of initiatives and researchers are concentrating on how we're going to rebuild Gaza. So it's now the genocide, and what will happen after the war will finish is a topic that a lot of researchers are doing their best to trying to tackle this issue.
Thank you. Perhaps since we are talking about what could be done from here, I was wondering, would welcoming students be an idea or not at all? Or do you fear that they won't be able to come back?
If we talk about the West Bank, for example, it is not that sensitive. This is important, and we encourage our students to move for exchange programs, because this, it is impossible for academics to come from outside to the West Bank now in this situation, and there are restrictions started before on academics to maybe bring their experience to the West Bank universities. So we support and encourage our students, our professors, academic staff to move for any exchange programs. And France is one of the important destinations for these programs. And this, frankly speaking, this enriches our student experience and develops the environment, the academic environment, because they come back with a new experience to maybe share with their colleagues and with their professors. This is important. In Gaza, situation in Gaza, it is very complicated and sensitive, as I said. At least until the clear end of this war.
The problem that about helping one or two students, it's important to help. Like with the exchanging program and these things, we can help dozens of students. But what we are thinking about, it's more holistic things, is helping the university in Gaza to restart working under difficult situation, and these things is to supporting them. The initiative to have students is important, because as Dr. Ibrahim mentioned, we always encourage our students to go outside and to have the experience to spend 1 semester or 2 semesters there. After that, they will return back to the university. It's a good experience. But when we look at the situation in Gaza, it's totally different. Also, how the students will go outside the Gaza, it's another story. It's not so simple. Even if we encourage these initiatives that can help dozens of students, it's not easy for the people in Gaza to go outside Gaza. The border there is closed for several months, and we don't think it will be reopened soon, from what we are seeing on the ground till this hour. We should put more effort in helping the university in Gaza. Maybe exchange program and these things could be shifted to support the university in Gaza. We should think how to do it, but we do not encourage to host students, because maybe the brilliant students will leave Gaza and go outside and not return back, or they will not be allowed to return back because the borders will be closed. We should be critical when we are thinking about having these programs. We don't say that we should not have these programs. It's important, but we should take it and put it in the context of Gaza and all the difficulty that the students there are facing, and to think about it from the view of rebuilding and having the students not leaving Gaza and return back to their society to help their society.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any.
Maybe I can mention one story related to this. My colleague Yahya, he moved from Gaza to meet his supervisor in October 5th, 2023, and until now he's trying to be back to Gaza. His family, was evacuated for more than 10 times. His wife is a medical staff, and his kids most of the time are alone in their tents. So it is very complicated. And we talk about the students. This is the same struggle for everybody in Gaza.
Okay, I don't see any other question in the room. So, I mean, it was complicated to organize this session for us. So I would like to ask you, Lourdes and Ibrahim, if you have the impression that there are things that we haven't discussed which are important, that would be the occasion. We have still a bit of time, so I don't know. The floor is yours. Take it.
I think the most important maybe fear for us here in the West Bank mainly that the situation is becoming more complicated. I'm from Jenin, and I saw the situation, how it is different for this time. It is a real war, and it is continuous escalation, and it is moving from one area to another. So I think this is very important for us, and we have real fears for the future of higher education process. Actually, it was very complicated to protect the higher education system for the last 1.5 years. It is not only related to the physical attendance of the students, also the mental attendance of us as professors and for our students in this war and in this very high tension and very high pressure on us. It was very difficult, but we did that. We are not sure that in the coming future this will be possible as it was, and but we are sure that it will be more complicated.
Okay, at the end, I want to thank you for organizing this workshop or meeting. I know it was not easy to coordinate such a thing, but it's essential in this difficult situation to continue supporting freedom of speech, to continue supporting the Palestinian, not as a Palestinian, to continue supporting humanity. Because when we are organizing such a thing, we are supporting humanity, not the Palestinian, because all the human has the right to free education, freedom expressing themselves, the freedom to support other human being in all the world. I think education is very important, and as my colleague said, we are passing through difficult times, even in Gaza or in the West Bank. unfortunately, the situation in Gaza is very bad comparing to West Bank, but we are living under also the critical situation, and we are afraid that the situation will be escalated more in the West Bank. I think supporting higher education by different means. We are welcoming supporting education and higher education by different means. And we thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk about this sensitive issue and to try to express our views and to give you the idea of what we are facing and what the Palestinian and the young generation is facing. So we thank you for supporting and coordinating this initiative, and we encourage you to continue supporting the freedom of speech and to continue supporting the humanity so we can reach to a situation that we will not facing the occupation anymore. Thank you.
Well, thank you to you. I mean, it's only normal to be there. I think you have had the last word. I mean, we are supporting you. We are ready to do anything we can do if we can. So I am sure that the organizers, I mean, we have to remind that these are students who are organizing the seminars. And so I would like to thank them all, because if they wouldn't do that, this event wouldn't have taken place. So thank you to the organizers. And as I say, to begin with, especially to Nila and Selim, but also to the technical staff who was trying to be in contact with you, translating English, etc. So thank you, and I hope to be able to reach out and catch up very soon, and that it would be in better circumstances.
Thank you very much on behalf of the organizers, and thank you to you all for coming.
Tu vas annoncer la prochaine, peut-être?
Yes. Alors, peut-être en français pour les francophones. La prochaine séance, ça sera ce jeudi. C'est là aussi une séance qui a été déplacée, qui était prévue en février. Ça sera avec Stéphanie Latabdallah qui nous parlera de la détention des vivants et des morts et de la nécroviolence en Palestine. Et la séance sera modérée par Clémence Andriès. Donc, ça sera au 29 rue d'Ulm, Amphi Jaurès, à 18h, jeudi. Au 29 rue d'Ulm, à Amphi Jaurès. C'est Jourdan? Ah bah pardon, ça a été... Excusez-moi. Ok, c'est Amphi Cohen alors? Ok, Amphi Cohen, à Jourdan. Pardon, je me suis embrouillé les pinceaux alors.
Thank you all. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Est-ce que ça vous intéresse ou vous l'avez
Il faut laisser ouvert.